Good evening, everyone.
Boys
Welcome
and
to
girls.
another episode here, Season 6, Episode 15 of the Isles Talk podcast. Before we go any further, we're going to do this first because the Islanders just find a way to do this.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Joining me this evening, Gary Harding. Gary, are you pulled back in? Are you back with the Islanders, Gary?
Is that a loaded question?
Yes. Yes.
Well, you know me, I'm always the glass half full guy, not the glass half empty guy. So, after game 2, I said, impress me. Saying to myself, come on, Islanders, impress me. Take 5 in a row here. They did what I asked. So I'm going to take full credit for it.
Unfortunately, Gary, you can't take credit for your Bills, who were supposed to win, but they didn't. And joining us also this evening from the Locked On Isles podcast, we have Gil Martin. Welcome back, Gil. Thanks for joining us, and sorry about Gary.
Hey, thanks for having me. I always appreciate it. Always great to talk a little Isles hockey with you guys.
Yeah, but remember, Paul, his Packers came out before my Bills. So.
And I'm a Giants fan. I've got no purpose of talking anyway. So, yeah, going to be a long show. So anyway, listen, gentlemen, I don't even know how we can do a show anymore. The weirder the season gets, the more the Islanders win. It's completely unexplainable, but you got to give this man a little bit of credit. He's the Godfather comes in, makes some really, really interesting moves. And granted, they were part of it already, but we're looking at a 5-game winning streak from the New York Islanders. They needed to do that on the 7-game home stretch. 6-0-1, 7-0 probably would have been better, but we'll take the 5-2 moving forward. Hogberg, Pulock, Dobson all get injured within this 5-game winning streak. And Gary, I'll start off with you. Out of those 3, who are the most? Who's that one player, the most significant player that the Islanders are going to miss out of those 3?
I think at the moment, at this just particular moment, not going to stretch it out. I think it's Hogberg, to be honest.
Right.
There's going to be a back-to-back Saturday and Sunday in Florida. So
right.
That Jakob Skarik's going to get his NHL debut at one of those games. You want to ride Ilya, but we all know in these days, the times of a Marty Brodeur and a Roberto Luongo playing 69, 70, 71 games a year are long over. No goalies do that anymore. They're back to, not being maybe, half and half, but 60-40 or what have you. And nobody knows what Varlamov's status has been. And come on, when he signed in August, would you expect, that he would, although it's a small sample set, would you expect Hogberg to have a .947 save percentage and a 1.4 goals against average? He's been a godsend. Again, Lou makes a deal and gets a guy next to nothing who didn't think he was gonna have any chance of maybe getting back in the NHL, and not only did he, but he really, made a name for himself. And you would have thought it would have been Dobson, but with the 2 moves they made, I think they're definitely a big positive. And but yeah, I'm gonna stick with Hogberg for now.
Okay, go ahead, Gil. Who are you gonna miss most?
I think it's Hogberg also, only because, Varley's not there. And, Gary, to your point, I'm not sure that Skarik gets a start, because the thinking from Patrick Roy and from Lou Lamoriello may be, okay, we only have another, week and a half until 4 Nations. if we go back to back with Sorokin, he'll rest for those 10 days. And, you know, they've been reluctant. They were reluctant to start Hogberg at first.
Right.
They didn't give him a chance.
Right.
And I think that was to their detriment, because I think Sorokin started to show a little wear and tear, and the schedule got a little bit more spread out recently. And then they went with Hogberg, and it just kept playing well. I don't know that they'll give Skarek a start. I don't know if they should or not. You don't want to wear out Sorokin, because you're going to need him regardless of who the backup is. But, you know, with the Four Nations coming up, they may actually just go with
I would
Sorokin.
say, I agree. I kind of go to a point, but you got 6 games in 9 days.
I know.
That's the
2 of them
point.
are
I don't,
back-to-backs.
you know, yeah, and 2
Back-to-backs.
back-to-backs in there. So that's it, you know, and with the last 2 being Winnipeg and Minnesota, those are going to be 2 very difficult games back to back. So
Although
that's why I
Minnesota
say you
doesn't
got
have
to put them in.
Kaprizov now.
You know, I would say you put him in 1
Yeah,
and
I
see
can
what
see that.
happens. If he plays a good game, maybe he gets another one of those. It's just those back-to-backs. I really don't want to see Sorokin playing back-to-backs twice in a week.
I agree, but I don't know what Patrick Waugh is going to do.
Well,
Right.
we nobody knows what Patrick was going to do.
Does Patrick Waugh know what Patrick Waugh is going to do?
Exactly.
No, and he even said in last night's press conference he's taking it game by game, one game at a time. So, I also agree. I'm gonna go Hogberg, but it's only because of the acquisitions that the Islanders got over the last week during this 5-game winning streak, and we're gonna start off with Tony DeAngelo. Now, Joe is not here, so. Again, for those of you who are regulars on this show, sometimes we can take credit, sometimes we cannot. This is one of those moments. It's one of those, I have rolled a 300 game in bowling twice, but I didn't do it during the league, so it doesn't count. Okay? I want to make, yes, I know you have. I know. I like putting a smile on your face there. Keep shoveling peanuts in your mouth, whatever. The moment Tony DeAngelo was cut from the KHL, my first text to Joe was, when are the Islanders signing Tony DeAngelo? This was before all the injuries, before anything else. Why? Because it's so Islander-like this year. He's out there. He's in the open. When he's performing, he can put up points as a defenseman, which is what the Islanders have needed all season long. And it's just Islander-like. And here we are, an injury to Noah Dobson. Tony DeAngelo comes in. Guys, give me your thoughts on DeAngelo so far. Granted, 2 games, but he looks like he's fitting in. Gil, go for it.
So far, so good. I mean, look, my bigger concerns about DeAngelo are not what he's capable of doing on the ice. I think that we all know what his skill set is. We all know that he's a capable offensive defenseman in this league. The big question with DeAngelo is, will he be a good teammate, and will he be good off the ice? And if he can accomplish those 2 things, he may even be in several ways an upgrade over Noah Dobson, especially in his own zone.
Well, the way I think about it is, you know, and there's all sorts of stories, and I'm not going to say what I think is true, what's not true, and what's gone on and what's not gone wrong. But yeah, I'm sure that his conversation with Lou Lamoriello before Lou put him to a contract was probably one of the toughest job interviews that he's ever had. You know, I'm sure in order for Lou to take somebody like that, he must have not only said the right things, but said enough to give Lou the little bit of leeway or breathing room to take a chance. Because he's not one to have any type of a cancer in a locker room. Because if there's one little minute bit of it, they're gone. It's not even an afterthought. It's just done. So that's why I say, that it's worked out. And, we all know, especially in the last couple of weeks, that Alex Romanov has really put his physicality on show to everybody.
Yes.
And you have that in D'Angelo along with his offensive side. He could be a nasty pain in the keister. And I think that's something the Isles have needed. I mean, we've seen, starting with Columbus on the third game of the homestand, that the number of hits started going up. Not just D'Angelo, it was everybody. It went up, it went up, it went up. And in the third period, begin first period and the third period against Colorado last night, they were keeping them to the outside. They were pushing them in the corners. They were winning the battles. They were showing the physicality. Everybody was. And that's what you like.
And I got to give a shout out to Mark Gatcomb for contributing to that physicality, because he comes on, maybe he only plays 7 minutes, 8 minutes a game, and he'll end up with 5 or 6 hits in those 7 or 8 minutes. So he has given the fourth line, again, small sample size, what are we talking, 4 or 5 games, but he has given back that fourth line physicality that kind of has been lacking for the first 40 or so games of the season. And it's been, I think, a little bit of a catalyst for the improved play of the bottom 6 right now.
Absolutely. And to help out with that bottom 6, Scott Perunovich, coming from St. Louis for a conditional 5th round pick. Again, I'll take the lead a little bit on this one. Thomas Hickey was spot on with Perunovich. Gil, I know you watch Bridgeport from time to time as well. Perunovich in Springfield, he wasn't putting up big numbers, but you heard his name on the TV quite often, whether it was an assist or whether it was just a good play. He made himself known, but he plays a very basic, steady game. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a type of retool move where Perunovich just needed a place to play, showcase what he can do. And if this system absolutely works with him and the Islanders have themselves a solid bottom 6 defenseman who could probably play top 4 minutes, a possible Mike Riley replacement for the future. And he's a restricted free agent. This is a big win here for Lou.
I think so. I mean, look, it's been 1 game. I'm not ready to say he's the second coming of anybody.
No,
yet.
not at all. But I liked him in the A.
Oh, look, to me, at the very least, if he works out, he can be your 6th or 7th defenseman next year. And if both D'Angelo, if both of these guys work out, does that make it more feasible to move Noah Dobson if he doesn't agree to a reasonable contract as an RFA this offseason? Maybe it does. But these 2 guys fill a need, because other than Dobson, they haven't had, especially with Riley out of the lineup, a puck-moving defenseman. And since Dobson tends to turn the puck over a little bit more than we would like him to do, and is a defensive liability this season for the most part, having 2 guys who could move the puck and not be a defensive liability is an upgrade.
Right. Absolutely.
And they both fall into the we've talked about it all the time, and I call it the Thomas Hickey kind of style, because when you're not big as a defenseman, you have to be more positionally sound.
Right.
And Perunovich seems to be the one that does it very smoothly, with I wouldn't say minimal effort, but minimal optical effort. He gets to where he's got to be. He's in the right spot. D'Angelo does the same thing, but he's a little more grittier. He's a little more bangier. He does, he plays bigger than his 5'10", 180. So if as long as they're doing the right things, they're effective. And we've seen D'Angelo hurt us in Carolina, hurt us when he was a Ranger, hurt us when he was a Flyer. He falls into that almost that Hunter-like category or whatever of guys you can't stand when you're playing against them, but when they're on your team, you start to love the guy. And, you know, I just felt after Dobby got hurt, I'm going, oh crap, here we go. But, you know, 72 hours later, you know, it's very comfortable. Thank you. Thank you, Godfather.
And look, I mean, I certainly, and anyone who has watched or listened to my show knows I have my issues with the way Lou Lamoriello has put this team together and kept this team together. But when the chips are down and he needs to sort of be creative and find a way to fill in a guy, he actually, I think that's where he excels the most right now. I mean, we saw it last year with Riley, and now we're seeing it this year when the chips are down and he needs to find somebody from in a sort of unorthodox way. He gets creative and he gets the job done.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to bring all of this in together, and this is where we're going to bring in the chat as well. We're all pulled back in, for better or for worse. We're all pulled back in. We're all zeroed in now on the season. What are the Islanders going to do? What do you want them to do? You know, so on and so forth here. Looking at the standings, okay. You guys know I still play the percentages. No one in that 7th or 8th spot is still touching 93 points on a 93-point pace. Once a team hits 93, they just tend to drop. And we can now add Tampa Bay. They're on pace for 92 right now, but again, they've had injuries. When they get healthy, should they move up? Sure. We'll give them that. They're Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's not awake yet. Tampa Bay doesn't get up until like the final 15, 20 games of the season anyway, and they roar right into the playoffs. We'll see what they do. But in the meantime, when I look at the standings for the second half of the season, and this is where I'll be glass half full here. Wait. Where's that one? All right. I'm going to go this side right here. I'm going to go this side for now. Okay. I look at the regulation losses more so than I do wins, because the more losses you have in the second half of the season, regulation, the less of a chance you have of making the playoffs. Happens every time. What I like about the Islanders heading into the final 30 games, call it. New Jersey has 18 regulation losses. Columbus has 19. Even Carolina's got 16. But Carolina should be doing better as soon as those players really get a handle on the system. But Tampa Bay's got 20 regulation losses. The Wings have 21. The Habs have 21. Boston's got 21. The Rangers have 22 regulation losses. And the Islanders only have 20. The Islanders are in it for now, whether fans like it or not. This 5-game winning streak has now brought them into the playoff picture. And again, because of that 93-point pace, it's pretty much needed to get into the playoffs. I have to imagine, and I don't even know if this is going to happen, everyone here has got to be buyers, Gary. They don't have enough right now, and the Islanders are now just healthy enough so that way we can finally see what kind of a team we were supposed to have all season here. But the rest of this Metro, the rest of the Atlantic, fighting for that 7th, 8th spot, and, we'll have a little fun. We'll see what the Senators can do with Tampa Bay for like the next couple of weeks. They got to be buyers. We've got drama.
Yeah, I think it's going to be I'm sure it's going to be one of the more active trade deadlines, because, you've got a lot of teams, obviously, with players on the last years of their contracts. And you got, you probably, thinking in the back of your mind, you're going to lose certain guys. So I'm not going to name names. We all know the situation.
But it's every team now.
But that's the point I'm making. Every team has got that situation. So they want to be able to get somebody, maybe not, in a similar method, but, not on that last year of the contract. So at least you're getting some kind of value. Right. You may not get the superstar guy, but again, Lou's made the moves to improve the team without really raising an eyebrow. Can that kind of thing be done again? Time will tell. But with the exception maybe of the Blackhawks and the Sharks and the Buffalo Sabres, unfortunately, again, for year number 13, yeah, I think everybody's going to be wanting to do something to improve their lineup. So, once we get back from that Four Nations tournament around the 23rd of February until March 7th is the trade deadline, Paul, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's going to be a crazy 17 days.
And on the flip side, Gil, I'm going to give this one to you. We got this side of the playoffs, right? We got that side of the playoffs, and I want to give you the mic because you brought up a great point. There's a large ladder to climb to get into the playoffs here.
There is. And the point is you got to get to the 93 points, but then you got to make sure none of these other 7 teams that are in the fight get 94. So it is not going to be easy. The tricky part is this. It's that you got to pass 7 other teams and stay ahead of them. And the other tricky part is, even though you're only out 4 points, you're talking about there are 3-point games out there, and it makes it harder to make up the points because, let's say the Islanders play Columbus. They beat Columbus, but it's in overtime. So you only gain 1 point instead of gaining 2 points. Or if Columbus is playing Tampa Bay and they go to a shootout, both teams are getting points from that game. It makes the number is small, but it does make it a little tougher to make up the points because some games are worth 3 points and some games are worth 2. I don't like that rule, but that's the way it is.
Exactly. And this is what we're trying to explain to everyone watching the show today and later on. When you look at the Islanders' schedule, gentlemen, the playoffs start tomorrow. We've got 2 games against Philly. We've got 3 games against the Rangers. I finally get my playoffs against the Rangers, happening soon. But the Islanders have to beat the Rangers in all of them. They've got at least a game or 2 against Columbus. They've got 1 game against Boston. They've got Tampa. So they got to battle through. 3 against Tampa. Gentlemen, the playoffs start tomorrow.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Like, we get into a 5-game winning streak, and now we have the playoffs basically for the rest of the season. So, and Flyers are losing 2-0. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. I mean, you have you're coming out of the 5-game win streak, but also remember, you're on a 3-game road winning streak too.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. But now to help Thomas out here, the Devils are winning, but I want the Devils to win in regulation. Yeah. We all want the Devils to win in regulation.
Right.
So, we'll see what happens here. So
keep Tortorella pissed.
What's that?
Keep Tortorella pissed.
Yes. The playoffs started a month ago. I don't know. I'm not as optimistic as you, Robin. I'll be honest with you. I was not as optimistic.
No.
A month ago, I didn't even know who this team was. And a couple of weeks ago, a lot of pink slips were about to be handed out. You missed the playoffs. Everyone's going to be done. That may still happen.
I mean, after game 2 of the homestand, right. I guarantee you 90% of the people in that building, if you would have put a gun to their head and say, we're making the playoffs, they're all saying no. Mm-hmm. And I was starting not to lean that way. You know me, Paul, for years.
Yep.
I'm always a glass half full guy. I was starting to go the other way. But again, that game against Columbus started it. I'm like, I'm seeing things. They're playing a different way. It's inspiring. Anders Lee's playing like a 22-year-old out there. And that kind of thing just gets everybody going. And again, the injuries came, and we're sitting there going, oh, God, Pulak's out 15 seconds in. Lou makes a deal. They're still moving. The train is still leaving the station and continuing down the road. And that's what you want to see.
Gil, go for it.
There's one thing I wonder, and I wanted to ask the both of you this. you talked about, this frenzy between four nations and the trade deadline with all these teams in the Eastern Conference. I wonder if some of those teams will be a little less aggressive. And I'm talking about the Columbuses and the Montreals. Those teams are kind of playing with house money right now. And they may be saying, you know what? We're not going to make a big splash at the trade deadline. We may not sell, but we may not buy big. We may make a small move here or there because they weren't expected to get anywhere. And to them, the more important thing is, what do we do next year? What do we do the year after that? They don't want to break up a young up-and-coming core. So I think there are two or three teams, maybe Montreal, maybe Philly, maybe Columbus, who may not be as aggressive at the trade deadline as some of these other teams.
It's very interesting.
Now, go ahead. Yeah, I completely agree. House money, and more so with Columbus because they're still running on emotion.
Yeah.
They are still running on emotion, and we said this, Gil, at the beginning of the season. There was no way anyone could predict how well Columbus was going to do this year because of the amount of emotion that's getting poured into this team. They're not doing as well right now because Monahan has been injured.
Yeah.
And injuries to the Habs, injuries to Columbus. The Habs have been injured on and off all season long, especially with Line. But now we're starting to see these, and Detroit. Now we're starting to see these injuries with these other teams, and it's not the Islanders. So now well, then again, we just lost Pulock and Dobson. Never mind, scratch that. But again, it's going to show how these teams can handle that kind of pressure with the amount of injuries. Who's going to step up? The character of all of those teams still has to be revealed. And to your point, Gil, smaller moves may actually, work with some of these teams. But I agree with you. I think some of those teams are longer term. We're doing great. Let's see what we can do and work our way up. But I do have to ask this question. The Rangers, baffling to me. The Rangers just had, I believe, a 4 or 5 game winning streak of their own. Why would you let out that Mika Zibanejad was traded to the Vancouver Canucks for JT Miller? And it was Zibanejad who turned down the trade, but he was essentially traded for JT Miller in the middle of a 5-game winning streak. Why can't you keep that on the down low? Like this, from me, Gil, I said this a week or two ago. I think the Rangers are just playing just enough until after this trade deadline, and then they're going to go full blown out mutiny after the trade deadline on Chris Drury. Like, you want to talk about drama. Both teams have drama, but I've got no clue. Give me your thoughts on the Rangers this year, and are you honestly expecting them to make a bigger push and get into the playoffs?
See, the thing about the Rangers is that their problem is internal more than anything else. I don't think the team lacks talent. They lack cohesion. They don't seem to like each other right now, and they don't seem to like the way the team is being run. So I just am not sure if they respond positively because the talent is there and they sort of get over the hurdles that they have, or if they implode and self-destruct because they can't get out of each other's way and there's too much negativity in that locker room right now. So as someone following the Islanders and rooting for the Islanders, it's like very hard to predict how this is all going to play out. But the Rangers' talent is better than their record, and that has me a little bit concerned.
Sure. How long are Pulock and Dobson out for? Jeff, I'm probably going to go long term because if Varlamov is coming back anytime soon, one of those two will probably go on LTIR, and that'll allow Varlamov to come back. But I wouldn't be surprised even if Hogberg came back, I wouldn't be surprised if they ran 3 goalies for the rest of the season. Wouldn't be surprised. Again, it's just this type of Islanders season. It's the Islanders. They're going to do this. We've done this before. They'll do it again. So, yeah.
There's a
Oh, by
problem
the
with
way,
that, though.
just
Yeah.
tacking on to Gil's point, there is a medical term for what the Rangers have right now.
Mhm.
It's called labialetitis. Just look at every time Peter Laviolette has coached, with the exception of Washington. Every time he's coached, he's had a great start. Carolina started, won the cup. Nashville goes there, goes to the finals. Philly goes there, goes to the finals. What happens the year after?
Agreed.
Look at that, but that's the same situation. He loses.
I don't know.
In most of those situations, he lost the locker room. The guys started turning on each other. Look at Nashville. Look at Philly. Washington, didn't have anything. It was post cup, so I don't count that part. But
yeah, but Chris Drury's made some moves already. That's gonna hamper Laviolette a little bit. You know, that's
still.
a little more on Drury. I mean, no, I get your point, and I'm very happy this is the season for the Rangers to bomb. Don't get me wrong, but I
especially your family.
Well, yes. Oh, we're not even going to get into that. But Drury, Drury has his hands very, very in this mix. I'm not going to go full Laviolette like that just yet. But
okay, but it's a factor.
Oh, no doubt. Go ahead, Gil.
Yeah, I just one other thing about Hogberg, though, that you may be overlooking. If he plays 10 games, he has to go through waivers because he was an emergency call-up.
Right.
So if they run 3 goalies, they may end up having to expose him to waivers, and I don't know if they're going to want to do that.
Maybe not. That's also true. So we'll have
That's
to see
to
see when Varley comes back. Right. Should the Isles trade Varley if Hogg and him come back? No, honestly, I don't think they should trade Varley. I don't think there's no value to him just yet. I think other teams would want to see how he is physically. Plus, it's the other year on that contract. I don't think they want to dig into that just yet. It's usually, again, this season, whatever, usually difficult to trade a player at the trade deadline with 1 year left and with that age. Yeah.
He has 2
years left.
2
yeah,
years
2 years left.
And
I mean, in general, in general,
to boot.
Yeah, like in general, players who are in their 30s with at least a year or two, they don't do that. Otherwise, Andrew Ladd would have been traded if he hadn't had that signing bonus every year. There's just contract stipulations with all of that. So trading older players like that, it's very tough to do in general. But in all honesty, Hogberg has more value.
Wouldn't you want to convince Rick DiPietro to come out of retirement?
Look, I believe this is the last year we're paying either him or it's Alexei Yashin. I have to figure it out. No more contracts from either one of them, please. Okay.
You know, one thing.
Okay.
Is it just me, or did Ricky get robbed in the quarter century team? I mean, I would put him there over Varley. No offense to Varley, but to me,
I would have put Thomas Greiss over Varley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seriously.
Yeah. You could make a case. Absolutely.
Yeah. That could be. I agree. The rumors that Vancouver's trading Pedersen, not happening. Look, you want to talk about something really bad over there. That's Vancouver. That's drama. That the only person at this point that I think the Islanders would absolutely have a shot for would be Brock Besser. And we may not have to get him until the free agency. So I don't even think that would be an issue. I don't think Pedersen is going to get traded. Then again, JT Miller has, gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's only made like the Rangers his only place to be traded to. So I don't know what's going on over there. We know it's East Coast, but I don't know. Too many things going on with Miller. And, for my Calgary Flame fans, listen, if they're all still there by the trade deadline, you're making the playoffs because there's just too much drama in Vancouver right now for them to go anywhere. So, yes. Yeah, Miller's not coming to the Islanders. Let's just, Miller's not coming to the Islanders. Let's just get that, out of the way. And again, Pettersson, with that trade, you'd have to throw over a boatload to bring him over here.
I
So
mean, come on, you wouldn't think Mikko Rantanen would have got traded, and especially with numbers he was putting up, you wouldn't expect a guy like that to be moved. So
but
anything is possible. What I'm just saying is anything is possible.
Right, but he's going to set the precedent for wingers now and money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If he's, Panarin did set that standard with the Rangers way back when. Rantanen's looking, if I'm not mistaken, for 14 now. That's going to be a lot for a winger. So
not for anybody,
for anybody. That's true for anybody. But I want to see how Rantanen does with Carolina. If he's not putting up the same numbers,
hey, that $14 million, that's a 12th man in the NBA.
Yeah, yeah. But now you're looking at the the Colorado effect. Is Rantanen only good in Colorado, or some of these other players from Toronto? Are they just good in Toronto because of the players that they've been around?
Well, we got to get more. I mean, they got points last night, but I like the way the Drury and Natchez fitted in Colorado. They fit very well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Natchez had what a great start he had. And then he had a bad 10 or 15 games, and that cost him.
Yeah,
I think that's unfortunately gonna bite Colorado in the rear.
Right. Yeah, and for those of you liking Brock Besser, listen. The only reason why I brought up Brock Besser is the fact that he is basically a two-way forward as a winger. He is like a Brock Nelson on the wing. So if and I believe he's still friends with Matt Barzal. A nice little chemistry with Horvat when they were both playing in Vancouver. For me, it just makes sense. I'm just spitballing here. I've got nothing to go. We were talking, Gil, about the free agency a few weeks ago, and we were talking about Kyle Palmieri, and there's really one right winger doing better than Kyle Palmieri in terms of the numbers at this point, and it's Brock Besser. So, and he kind of fits the mold here for the Islanders. So that's the only reason why I brought him up, a little bit. So if we do lose Brock Nelson in the offseason, for me, who is your next center? Do you want to put Matt Barzal at center? Or would you rather? Okay. Okay, you like that line of call it Lee, Horvat, and Barzal?
I do so far. I mean, the thing about Wah is he barely keeps lines together for a period, let alone for a game or a week or any long-term thing. Right. But yeah, I have a question I wanted to ask you guys.
Sure.
As far as Brock Nelson is concerned, there was a quote out there. I forget which insider said it. I think it was Saravelli, but I wouldn't swear to it. Right. That said that he or his agent had made it clear that he wanted to test the free agent market this coming summer. How serious do you think that is, and how bad would it be to lose him for nothing if that is indeed the case?
I think that's going to get answered over the next couple of weeks. If the Islanders happen to go into a slump, or there's another team that suddenly gets hot, the Islanders have to set a number of like how many points they are back from a playoff spot in order for them to make a decision on whether or not they're going to keep, we'll call it Brock and Palmieri for now before the trade deadline. I'm not going to lie, guys. Brock doesn't look like he wants to be traded. It almost looks like he's looking to re-sign an extension here with the Islanders, like the way they're playing. And I'm just shooting from the hip here. I don't know if he wants to come back. I don't know if he really wants to re-sign in Minnesota. If he really has intentions on signing in Minnesota, the way Brock Nelson's value is right now, I would trade him. I'm not even playing armchair GM. I'm playing cutthroat GM. Give me Marco Rossi from Minnesota. Give me a player now who's still going to help the Islanders get into the playoffs if we have to trade Brock Nelson. Give me someone younger, under contract, under term, but give me one of their younger stars. Okay. In Dallas, give me
and adding on that Kaprizov's out for 4 weeks.
Right.
So that's going to be another situation where they may want to do something.
Sure.
And they may have to give up something better to get that kind of a person in Brock.
Right. In Dallas, give me Maverick Bork.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You want Brock Nelson? Wonderful. Give me. I don't want a first round pick. I don't want a prospect. These guys want to win the Stanley Cup right now.
I want a guy that can put on the ice right now.
Yeah. Give me a player who's going to play right now so that way the Islanders, at least can make a legitimate, not a legitimate, but an extended run into these playoffs. That's what I would do. Go ahead, Gil.
And then if you want to re-sign Brock Nelson and he's willing to re-sign, how many years do you give him at this point? Because here's the thing. If I'm looking at this from Brock Nelson's standpoint, he's 33 years old. This is his last chance to cash in big. The next contract he signs will be a year, 2 years for $3-4 million a year, most likely, because he'll be 36, 37, 38. This is it. This is his last chance to secure his family and his children and his grandchildren, maybe even.
Sure.
How many years do you give him? Because if it's only 3 or 2, he could do so much better if he hits the open market, I think. So how does all of this sort of play out? Because if you give him more than 3 years, you're getting diminishing returns, most likely, as far as the value of the contract is concerned. So if you're Lou Lamoriello or whoever is running the Islanders,
right,
where do you draw that line? How do you handle what is obviously a tricky situation?
Who's a desperate team? Who's that desperate team right now? Who really wants Brock? Now, actually, I've been talking too much. Gary, go for it.
No,
give us your thoughts. Go ahead.
No, I'm on the same boat. I mean, you hate to lose somebody that's had a long history. I mean, 11, 12 years here, and it's tough to lose a guy that you've watched grow up into the great player he's been. I mean, yeah, I think it took a little longer than a lot of people would have wanted it to go, but the last 3 years of his 34, 36, 33 goals, has been great, but the business side always comes into play. Are you going to get, when is the moment that you either pull the trigger or not pull the trigger, depending on the value you can get. And I think that's the hardest decision a general manager has to make, is when to press or not to press that button. And to me, the next 6 games are important, before you get to that break, because all the general managers are going to do over those next 14 days, with the exception of ones that are running the 4 teams, are just throwing things all around. And again, let's just use a barometer and say, Brock played decent over the next 6 games, and then for Team USA, he blows up. He goes nuts, right, and does some great things. That's gonna make Lou's decision even 10 times worse. What do you he had a great tournament, or he did this, and so
okay, but now I have
ahead.
to flip that now. I have to flip that. Let's flip to this one for a moment. Okay. What if Brock gets hurt at this tournament?
Yeah. I agree. it's like the Olympics. It's a hard thing to think about. I mean, thank
Yeah.
God. I'm not saying thank God in a negative way, but it's only one person on the Islanders that's in this situation. I think Florida's got 6 guys going.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's it. That's, to me, you're the GM of the Florida Panthers. That's when you got to start worrying. You're glad to see these guys go to this tournament, but we all know, watching clips of the World Cup of Hockey in '96 with the U.S. and Canada, where they were butchering each other. It's going to be that kind of a tournament. I guarantee it. Every game's going to be intense times 10. So all these 32 GMs are going to be praying to whatever god they want to make sure all their guys come back safely.
And the one thing you can't afford is to have a John Tavares at the Olympics 2.0, where he was lost for the rest of the season playing, for Team Canada in the Olympics. And the Islanders did not make the playoffs that year, largely because their best player at the time was not available for the stretch drive.
Yep.
So, and does that like play into the idea of either saying he shouldn't play in the tournament or trading him before the tournament? Now, these wins make that less likely. The 5-game winning streak says no. But again, if his trade value goes to 0, if he blows out a knee, God forbid, you don't want to have that situation come up.
Right.
Yeah, because then you lose the ability to, not
Anything.
lose the ability, but the possibility of him going to free agency, could happen.
Yeah. And, and again, these questions are not going to get answered yet because the Islanders still have to play a few more games before the tournament. But
We've got 6 games left.
you got 6 games left. 3 on the road, I think.
5
4
on the road. 5 on the road. 1 at home. The only game at home is next Tuesday against Vegas.
Okay.
If they go to Philly, then to Florida, then they go to Winnipeg and Minnesota right before the tournament.
Maybe the Islanders will answer all these questions for us before then. Maybe some of these other teams are going to have this question linger for us, but it's a phenomenal discussion tonight because there are no answers. We don't know what the Islanders are going to do. Gil, how would you feel if the Islanders continue, maybe not a 7 or 8 game winning streak, but let's say they only go 10-2 in their last 12, whatever it is, and they get up to the trade deadline, they're 2 points out of a playoff spot, but they don't trade Brock Nelson. How are you going to feel like that? Because I know we've all been through the John Tavares thing, even though John said he didn't want to be traded. This is a different situation here. Brock is playing like he doesn't want to be traded at the moment. But if we don't trade Brock Nelson or Kyle Palmieri, and I'll leave this room also for the chat room, how are you guys going to feel if we don't trade Brock Nelson or Kyle Palmieri and we go straight for the playoffs?
I wouldn't like it. And to me, the logic is this, in my mind. If the Islanders get into the playoffs, they will be an underdog in any series that they play. Right. And in order to win the cup, they'd have to pull off 4 upsets in a row. And I just don't see that as a very realistic situation. This team has sort of been stuck in the muddy middle for, let's say, the last 4 or 5 years. And even when they made those great runs to the conference final, both of those years, they barely got into the playoffs. And so, to me, I don't want to be on a treadmill chasing 8th place in the conference year after year after year. Sometimes you got to take 1 step back to take 2 steps forward. And I'm not saying this team needs to rebuild where you just trade everybody, but I think that there is a core here that you can that you can build around, and with the right moves, you could pull off a Washington Capitals kind of a situation. But, Brock Nelson right now, the way the trade market is, because of the lack of quality centers out there, he may be one of the most, if not the most valuable players out there at the deadline. And if you want to take it a step further, theoretically, you could trade him and then sign him again over the summer as a free agent if he doesn't sign elsewhere. So losing those two guys for nothing, to me, is the worst case scenario long term for the New York Islanders. And that's not what I want to see.
Okay. Gary?
Yeah, it's making it, the way Gil just put it out there makes a lot more sense than I was thinking at the beginning of this beginning of this question. You know, that's why I say, you know, it's such a business that you don't, even though Brock and to a much smaller extent Kyle have made an impact on this organization for the long length of time. And you know, we know the JT situation burned the fan base. Will it be disappointing to see Brock go? Of course, yes, it will. I mean, like I said, he's given heart and soul to the blue and orange. But like I said, he's going to want, it's from the sounds of things, he wants to look and see what can be a better move. So if you can get something for him, at this point, like you said, I know you want Rossi, but if you're going to make a deal for Brock,
just as an example,
that was the example. But what I'm saying to myself is that if I was the GM and I needed to make a move for Brock, I like you said, I want somebody or something in the assets coming over that can help me, not just now for long term, but now.
Right. Yeah.
I need something now, and like I said, as a fan, I'm going to be disappointed. But looking at it from a holistic standpoint, you can't take a step back. You can lose somebody, but you got to be able to come flat. You got to come even, at least.
I mean, the rumors that I've heard, and again, who knows how accurate these rumors are, is that the Islanders could get like what they gave up, similar package for what they gave up for Bo Horvat in exchange for Brock Nelson at the trade deadline if they play their cards right. So that would be a number one pick, a player who would fit in now, and a prospect.
That's fine.
If they could pull that off, that's a whole different set of circumstances. And again, it doesn't prevent you from re-signing Brock Nelson if he doesn't sign an extension with the team you trade him to.
Right.
And even if he goes, let's say, we're just having fun with this, so don't quote us on anything, please. Let's say he's going to Minnesota next season. It's a given. Minnesota can just wait to sign him later on if they really wanted to, depending on how badly they want him. Winnipeg, on the other hand, Dallas, on the other hand, Central Division rivals. They'll take Brock Nelson to take over Minnesota in the playoffs. But it's like I said before, Gil, it would be very Islander-like if we traded Brock Nelson to the Minnesota Wild and the Minnesota Wild finally gets past the first round in eons. And then it's like pick number 28, 29, 30. Watch Minnesota go to the conference finals against Edmonton or Vegas or whoever, and it's a lower round pick. That would be very Islander-like to see the Minnesota Wild now. After we trade Brock Nelson, we help out Bill Guerin again, and Minnesota goes to the Western Conference Finals. Like that would be it. But I do want to ask this question. Well, actually, David's going to ask this question. Gentlemen, would you take a flyer on Saad when he clears waivers? 2-month experiment, play him on the third line with Pajot and Holmstrom. 26 goals last season. So for folks who don't know, Brendan Saad is on he will be placed on waivers, unconditional waivers, meaning if he clears waivers tomorrow, is it tomorrow or the next day?
Tomorrow.
I think it's tomorrow. Okay. If he clears waivers, ladies and gentlemen, his contract will be terminated, meaning he is a free agent and he can be signed to any team at any time. Gentlemen, would you take a flyer on Brendan Saad, say for $1,775,000 for the rest of this season? Because the Islanders still have $1.8 million in cap space for the rest of the season up until the trade deadline. Would you take a flyer on Brendan Saad?
I
good
like the
question.
grit.
Sure.
Who comes
I'm
out of the
different.
lineup if he comes in?
That's where
That's
I'm
my
coming at.
question first. Could he help this team? Yes, he could. Would it be? It would be a very Lou move. I mean, it would be the kind of thing where you're sacrificing nothing and taking a low risk, high reward potentially kind of a move. But who sits if you bring him in?
Yeah, I mean the chemistry right now is going so well, and we all know when Sippy got the 3-game suspension that he didn't come back the first game, and that's
Right.
basically saying, you know what, we're riding good right now. We're going to stay with what we got. So what do you replace? Again, let's just say, sake of argument, they don't, he doesn't sign for a couple of days, and somehow maybe early next week he signs, and the Islanders are just throwing spitballs out, are on a 7-game win streak. How can you
I
take
don't see it.
somebody out of that lineup?
Yeah.
You can't.
Right.
So if the Islanders right now had come 3-3-1 in this homestand, might be an idea.
Right.
But right now, who knows?
Actually, Brian, you can be fired for sucking. That's exactly what's happening. Brandon Saad has not done well, and yeah, that's exactly what it. When his contract is being terminated, it is mutual. It has to be mutual between ownership and the player and the agent. So yes, this is a mutual agreement to terminate the contract. That's how this is happening. Pedersen are all right. It's the Islanders. Never say never, but Pedersen, to my understanding, gentlemen, doesn't even want to leave Vancouver. He doesn't even want to leave. So I don't think Pedersen coming to the Islanders is going to make any sense for Vancouver, especially when you have the last name of Hughes as your captain of the Vancouver Canucks. Whether people like it or not, Hughes is going to have some kind of a say with what he wants on his team, because those are long-term contracts there. Okay, this isn't a Rantanen situation where he's an unrestricted free agent.
And Pedersen is also very connected to 2 guys with the same last name.
Nylander?
Yeah, the 2 guys that look like each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a big connection with the scenes. So I do not think he's going out of Vancouver.
No. They may sign Hughes in a few years. That's fine, but in all honesty, I don't think he's going just yet. The Devils would have to redraft quite a few prospects in order to get Hughes over, just in case. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Gil's got his fan club here tonight. I love it. Damn.
Thank you.
Yeah, he does.
Loving all
James,
this,
I
man.
appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
So
checks in the mail.
Yes. Any more questions, comments, concerns, boys and girls? This has been a really fun, a fun show so far. Yeah, the Canucks are a mess, no doubt. Final thoughts, gentlemen. This is a playoffs. The playoffs start tomorrow. The Islanders have got themselves back in it. Honestly, if it wasn't for this homestand, I don't know if they would be in it at this point. I think we would be saying, where's Brock going more often? Where's Kyle Palmieri going more often? I think Lou, for right now, has kept that conversation away for a little while longer. But as we get closer to the 4 nations, as we get closer to the trade deadline, I think that the conversation that we are currently having right now is going to come up again. It's going to grow and whatnot. Gary, playoffs start tomorrow. Are you going to be this fan, or are you going to be this fan?
You know where I am. You know where I am. Don't you start that garbage with
So
me.
give me your final thoughts. What do you want from the Islanders at this point, moving forward? That's right.
I'll say the theme based on what's happened in the last 2 weeks, just take the movie Groundhog Day.
Okay.
I want it to be the same every game. I want them to play the same way. I'm glad they're being so much more effective in the neutral zone. So much crashing and banging in the corners. They're playing like a bunch of Patrick Flatleys out there. I like that. I really do. It's typical and not of our friends that are always supporting us here on our show, but when you look at other boards and other things, it's just amazing. These people turn places more times than a presidential candidate. So it's amazing how people react to this team. And people know I don't waver. I always try to find a good in something. And, it was exciting last night, although I didn't have the greatest day and I was kind of almost zombie-like in the seats. But I really still loved what I saw last night. And that's got to continue. And I know, some people have their dislikes for Patrick Waugh and stuff like that. But when you hear the press conferences and you hear him speaking, it's unbelievable how much he really loves these guys. I rarely ever see a coach, good, bad, or indifferent, show the emotion as much, when he talks about the players that Patrick does. So by that, maybe he, did one of those like Herb Brooks throw a table or something after the second loss. And the guy said, you know what, I think it's time to start working. And things changed. But right now, I just want to see, we've all been craving for consistency. Now we just got to keep seeing more consistency than, included in this last 5 games. You can't take anything lightly. And Philly, you got to come out and play, even though you're playing as a road team, you got to play as hard as you did when you were the home team, and just continue that work. If they continue that work, it's going to make the trade deadline interesting. It's going to make these 30 games even more interesting. But, you and I, Paul, we always do that 15 game threshold, and that, usually we would pull ourselves out. But, look at this. It's game
season.
We're in the 50s and we're still in.
Yeah.
Any other year we would be saying, no, we're done. But let's enjoy let's enjoy it. Don't cry and complain after a loss. You know what? Just get back on the wagon. They'll get back on the wagon. Just stay with it, man.
Gil, give us your final thoughts here.
I'm going to sort of echo Gary in some ways, but to me, the one thing about this team so far this season, the only consistent thing has been their inconsistency. And they'll play well for 3 or 4 games, and then they'll look terrible for 3 or 4 games. Sometimes it's shift by shift or period by period. But to me, the key to the rest of the season, if you want to make the playoffs, you have to play consistent. And if they can't do that, then you got to sell at the deadline. If they follow up, heaven forbid, a 5-game winning streak with a 0-4-1, slump, that changes the whole equation. So to me, this team is healthy now. This team added some nice defenseman pieces. Show me that you care. Show me that you are consistent. Show me that what you've done over the last 5 games is not a hot streak, but it's closer to the new normal, that this is what this team is capable of doing on a semi-regular basis.
Sure.
You're probably going to need 60 to 65% of the remaining points this year to make the playoffs.
Yep.
You don't get that if you don't play consistent hockey. So be consistent and let the cards fall where they may.
Ryan, you're on my crap list. You haven't been here all season, and now you finally decide to show your face. And he's using the word excuse. He's using the word work as an excuse now. Love you, Ryan. Real quick before I get into my final thoughts, we had one more question here. How has the arena been, Gary? Has it been more people as the winning streak continues?
Well, the week, the 2 games, Friday and Saturday were sellouts. Last night, I think, was like 15-9. So, yeah, a lot. Claire said a lot of kids.
Good.
Which is good.
Start them while they're young.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
the crowds
But
have been enthusiastic with more,
much
over the winning
more.
streak, and that's
Yeah.
a great thing to see.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been better, and again, I mean, I've been loyal season ticket holder for 37, 38 years, but this fan base, as we all know, is very fickle.
Right.
So, it is what it is. But yeah, I was happy, as the wins came, the people came. I don't know what the walk-up crowd was in the last couple, but I'm sure it was decent. And for a Tuesday night against a team not in your conference, yeah, it was a good crowd.
Good. So, all right.
Final thoughts, Paul.
Here, yeah. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2025 NHL playoffs. You're here. Mostly everyone didn't think you would be here, but you're here. You're in it. The question is, are you going to be here for the rest of the season? Are the Islanders going to be here for the rest of the season? It goes with everything that Gary and Gil just said. The playoffs start tomorrow against Philadelphia. We've got some hate going on with the Rangers. I've got some hate going on with my family. Can't wait for that. We've got some tough games ahead, especially in March. Some top teams, but you're at home. Decisions are going to have to be made. Some tough decisions are going to be made, whether we like it or not. Welcome to the NHL season. Welcome to the playoffs. This is what it's going to take. If you can't make it to the game, it's understandable. Watch it on TV if you can. Try to support the team as much as you can in any way you can. Your playoffs start tomorrow. Enjoy it. Hate it, relish it, whatever. Show the passion. This is the year for it. This is the year where things cannot be explained through logic. This is a very Islander-esque season, depending on how old you are. Enjoy the run. We'll get all of our answers in the beginning of March. We'll get all of our answers in the beginning of April. We'll get to talk about it over the summertime. But for now, your playoffs have started. It starts tomorrow in Philadelphia. Good luck to all of you. We are not charging for therapy sessions here. You can't afford us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Isles Talk. Gary, where can they find you on social media?
At IslesMet63, or if you're at UBS, in between periods, I'm usually hanging out by section 215, 315, across from the Offside Tavern. Come by and say hello next time you're at UBS.
And we want to thank Gil for coming on once again, for putting up with the two of us.
Yes.
Gil, thank you so
Gil's
much.
The man. Gil's the man.
Yeah. As Gary likes to say, check is in the mail. Where can they find you on social media, Gil?
You can find me on X at Ice Wars NYR VS NYI, and of course the Locked On Islanders podcast.
Paul, you all right?
Oh, I can't hear both of you.
You can't hear?
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Gil, where can I find you on social media?
You can find me on X at Ice Wars NYR VS NYI, and of course the Locked On Islanders podcast, wherever you listen to or watch podcasts.
Beautiful. We're getting hacked by Ranger fans, folks. It's time to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back next Wednesday. See you later. Let's go, Islanders. NHL playoffs, boys and girls. You're here.